Welcome, everyone, to the Better Love Movement podcast, where you will finally learn how to intentionally do dating and relationships right. My name is Anita Stoudmire, and I am a licensed professional therapist and your personal love mentor. I've worked with thousands of singles and couples, giving them the skills needed to attract and keep the amazing love they desire. It is my heart's work to help people to get the skills needed to not only become the very best versions of themselves, but to help them grow and evolve emotionally and relationally. You can absolutely have the romantic relationship of your dreams. Come and let me show you how. Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome back again to this week's episode of the Better Love Movement podcast. My name is Anita Stoudmire. I am your resident love mentor and licensed professional therapist, and I am here to bring you a wonderful guest this week. We have had nothing but wonderful guests since the year has begun. So this has been a super exciting season of the podcast. So I am going to keep bringing you these guests because they bring it. They bring the information that we want to hear and the things that we need to know to become better, to become the best versions of ourselves. So this is episode number 148 that we're in. It is entitled Women Supporting Men's Mental Health. So today I am talking to Khadijah Tishan of the Real Healing Center. Let me tell you a little bit about Khadijah. Khadijah Tishan is an author, a speaker, a licensed therapist, and the founder of the Real Healing Center. She offers clinical training and education around healing trauma. Her mission is compassionate collective healing. That was a lot of C's. Since releasing her first book, Real, Radical, Empathic Acceptance of Life, How to Live and Serve Abundantly in 2020. She continues to challenge the world around the impact of trauma, culture, grief, and compassion. Khadijah has been featured on the African History Network, Radio 1, and the CW. Khadijah's latest online course, Fear, A Healing Journey, challenges your ideas around trauma, grief, and compassion to create our personal narrative of healing. This sacred space for women seeking to strengthen their roots in love and compassion. Welcome, Khadijah.
Thank you. And I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for joining me. All right. So we're going to jump right in and we're going to talk a little bit about women supporting men's mental health. I know in the last few years, we've been talking more, probably in the last 10 years, we've been talking more about mental health, period. Like this is something that's been a really, really hot topic. So we talk a little bit here about women's mental health, but let's talk a little bit about men's mental health. Okay. So why should women care about men's mental health?
Well, I think it's important to say that I think actually even though the intention of your show, right, is all about having better love, better relationships, better families, right? And I think a lot of times, and even for myself, I don't think that I understood the connection around the wellness of men and the role that they play in their wellness and the role that it plays in our relationships and our kids and how our not just sons, but sons and daughters, right, respond to their fathers when they're well and to your husband or your mate when you're well. And so for a lot of reasons, and I think people are surprised by this, right, that we have a lot of these things, mental health, and we talk about suicide, right, and the recent suicides in the media, and all of these ideas around how men should be responding and why they made that decision or why they chose to do what they do, especially when we look at men who are supposed to be successful or supposed to have resources or supposed to. And so what I realize is a lot of women don't realize that mental health for men is not connected to assets or resources or even necessarily career or business, how intelligent they even are. Some of these things are longstanding emotional traumas, sexual trauma, physical trauma that can be in the man's life for his entire life. And there's not often the welcome response when men actually acknowledge that something happened to them. So, the long and short of it is we are all connected, and not caring means not caring about really yourself, right? And your families, things like that.
For sure. And so my ladies, the people who follow me, the ladies who follow me, they're interested in relationships. They're interested in healthy relationships, getting married. That's something that I'm always promoting here on my show. And so, like you said, that's the number one reason why you should care about it, is you want to make sure that your masculine man is healthy mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, just in all the areas. So that's super, super important. So what are some of the challenges that men are finding when they're trying to seek help, or they're trying to do things to just shore up their mental health?
I think one of the big challenges, right, is just societal's beliefs around men emoting, right, or showing any emotion around challenges. You'll still see it's 2022, right, and there are still parents that are teaching young boys not to cry, right, not to express, not to whatever. And I always challenge these ideas when I see them on social media, because I want people to understand that essentially a little boy and a little girl are going to have challenging emotions, and the reason why they're crying has nothing to do with femininity or masculinity. It really has to do with the inability to communicate. And our jobs as parents, right, or caregivers, is to really help children navigate getting what they need, right, and using the words that they need, whether boy, girl, that should not matter. So I think just society's response to men when there is trouble and they are trying to express. So I always say with women to consider, do you have a space for men where it's okay for them to express something other than anger or something other than sexuality?
Right.
Because those are two things that we as women are sort of like, we're prepared for when men get angry, and we're also prepare ourselves for when men want to be sexual.
Right.
But do you have other space, disappointment, right? Low self-esteem, challenges around their own identity, right? And how they, what they're struggling with, even in leadership and at work. So it's just the society's views. And then something that we often don't even consider is how many male therapists there are for men to go to. Now, we already know that there's a challenge around finding therapists of color and Black therapists. We already know that but the truth is there's a shortage of therapists, period. There's like one therapist to every something like 700 people in the United States of America. So when men have challenges around, manhood, roles, gender, and they want to speak with someone that looks like them and can understand, oftentimes they have to wait months, sometimes a year. That's even if they're willing. Right. So just lack of support and all of those things. And then, thirdly, it's the idea that a lot of us carry, like, if it's not bad enough, right? It's not messed up enough to get help yet. And so often, especially with men, they're often, deferred to be the person, that the leader, right? To be the person with the answer. Like, you're the head, right? When you're the head of the household, you're the leader, and something is not right with you, the likelihood of them acknowledging that, right, is still very, very slim. But that doesn't mean that you're not a great leader just because you have something impacting you. Right. That means we need to figure out what that is so you can be even a better, more effective leader, father, husband, spouse, all those things. So, all the society, the resources and support that are available, and then just the idea that oftentimes, it gets so severe before people feel like they need to go and get help.
Right. And I've seen that for years, even in my couples therapy. I think the statistic John Gottman says that most couples wait 7 years. Like they wait 7 years before they even think about getting couples help. Wow. So we see that a lot, that people are like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. And then it gets really bad. And then they want to get help. So,
that's men. That's a lot of society. We have a lot of ideas around I always call it like we want solutions to nowhere.
Yeah.
So when people contact me about psychotherapy or training, a lot of times it's like, I know that there's a problem, right? Because people know, right? They're like,
Yeah.
you're the people know
Yep.
when they come to you, they're like, obviously, if you called
Right.
me up, you
Yep.
didn't call me with nothing on your mind.
Right.
And so we'll have a consultation and we'll talk about whether I'm a good fit for them. And that
Mm-hmm.
by the end of the consultation, they've talked themselves out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to wait and see if it gets worse.
Mm.
I mean, you'll hear
Yeah.
people say, it's not that bad yet.
Yeah.
And so we have to start looking at our wellness and our mental health as being something that we need to be addressing every single day, right? Not
Right.
when you get to the place where you're going to be hospitalized or
Right.
arrested
Yep.
or
Yep.
all of those things. So yeah,
Right.
we sometimes have solutions that go what I call solutions to nowhere,
Yeah.
just to do nothing.
Well, in my practice, I'm always talking to my clients about being proactive and proactive in your relationship. So with my couples therapy, I'm like, be proactive. I believe, and I said this to a group of couples yesterday in the workshop. I said, I believe that the state or whoever you're getting your marriage license from should not issue you a marriage license unless you've had premarital therapy. That's
Yeah.
that's what I believe. That if
Yeah.
it costs, if you have to do all this other stuff to, get a driver's license and do this and do that and,
Isn't that
get a
interesting?
license to be a therapist or anything else,
Yes.
if you want a marriage license, just
You're
like all
making a
those other
lifelong
yeah,
commitment. You're making
right.
a lifelong decision
Yep.
with variably no zero
No,
training,
zero
zero
training.
requirement.
Yeah, they
And
need to
think about
require.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to require how to work these things. And I'm never like, wow, they're doomed, right? It's like, no, it's just a lot of times it's like people just haven't had those conversations. They
Right.
never came out in their family weren't really supporting their emotions. We come up in roles where we are giving these gender roles, right?
Right.
With really no real detail or the finesse around what that even looks like for us as individuals.
Right.
And then something goes wrong. And
It
it will go
will.
wrong. Like I want
That's,
people to in the best relationships with two great people, it's
yep.
something's going to happen.
That's right. And that's what I tell people. So sorry. Yeah, I get it. So how do you access emotional wellness in men in relationships and why should we?
Well, I think that the important thing when I posted on my Facebook page, like,
Hmm.
do women care about resources more than they care about men's emotional wellness?
Mm.
Now, Anita, I thought everybody
Mhm.
was honestly gonna say, I thought everyone would go emotional wellness.
Right.
That was not the case.
Yeah.
That was not the case. About 50% of the people who responded were like, well, if they have a good job, what are they sad about?
Oh,
Well, why should we even care?
yeah.
Why is that our problem? Why isn't
Yeah.
their problem? Now, all of these things are actually fair, right? They're fair ideas of conversation, right? Like, to a certain degree, yeah, if a man is, accomplishing his goals and is in a
Hmm.
successful place, more than likely, if he's a healthy individual, he's going to be happy with life,
Right.
right? He's able to command what he wants, his worth, and the woman that he desires. For the most part, that's correct. Why should we care? Because we are all connected, right? Like we
Right.
should, whether that's my husband or your husband,
Right.
we should care about other families and how they're being supported and how they feel supported. Um, but I think that the big misnomer is that's not always necessarily true. Success
Yeah.
does not always equate to emotional wellness.
Right.
Money does not. I mean,
Yep.
Robin Williams, we have, Regina King's son, Ian. We
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
lots of people who look like us, who are successful, who
Right.
are educated,
Yeah, the
who
young
are just
lady that I posted about the day after her suicide, Chesley Trist.
Miss
And I
America. Yes,
mean, I could I just
accomplished.
I just looked at her Instagram. I mean, you couldn't see a more perfect life. So I just
Exactly.
tell people, like, do not be
Yes.
fooled. People are
Do not.
dealing with things, man.
Exactly. And it was so I posted that, and 3 days later we heard about like Ian and Regina King. And
Yeah,
I was just like,
yeah,
isn't that interesting that I was
yep,
having that exact thought? And that's it. That's what's up. We are all connected. We all sort of
right,
share energy. And I think even through my own experience, in a relationship and understanding that, wow, I mean, I'm with this man who, and goes into like what I talk about in the fear course, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're with a man and you know that something's gone wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know you don't know exactly what it is. And, you start a relationship, you're like, you don't want to pry, and you kind of want to take your time, and you're doing all the things, right? You're asking all of the where do you work and what do you do? And you're taking the trips, you're doing the dating, right? But as you become more emotionally connected and closer, you start, what I realize is like a lot of successful men see themselves, right, to the world as a king.
Right.
Then you get to know them. They take off that robe, and you see a lot of broken little boys.
Yep.
You see a lot of broken little boys that really never got real validations and affirmations. I share, with this intimate group of women, I'm in my 40s, right? And I've never been in a relationship with a man that's had a father.
Wow.
Never been in that. Went on dates, you know what I'm saying? But never been like in a long-term. Every single relationship was with a man who didn't have a father. And I can't tell you how much that impacted indirectly, not even knowing how he related to me, right? How he related to his role in my life, and how he related to, the emotional negotiations that come in relationships, of what he thought he was supposed to be versus what I needed, right? And him being able to hear emotionally. And so when we think about, emotional wellness, it doesn't mean someone has to be beaten or, try, you know what I'm saying? It's like a lot of times just a man not coming from a space where he's validated for himself and his own identity growing up is enough of a trauma. And we need to kind of recognize that this is when we just go, well, maybe not him, but someone else, and maybe not him. And then more and more boys are turning into men without that recognition and identity.
Right.
We can't keep saying, well, we just won't choose, because there would be no one left.
That's right. Man.
If we keep letting it go into like, that's just their family, and that's just that father, this little boy, these little boys are going to grow up and they're going to be somebody's husband one way or another. Right. And we can get them help now, or we can get them help later. That's fine. But we got to start recognizing, us as women, we have a lot of power with men, a lot. And we got to start using that power.
Right. I agree with that. There's a really great book. I don't know if you're familiar with. It's called The Boy Crisis. It was written by Dr. John Gray and Dr. Warren. I'm trying to remember his first name. But that book just completely opened my eyes to how we got here. It completely explained how we got here. How we got here, man. I was, and I have a son. So of course, I was like, okay, let me apply some of this to him. I mean, his dad's in his life. And I'm always continuing to encourage them to do more, to take trips together and do more together. But that was the eye opener for me. When I read that book, I was like, we have a boy crisis. All right. It's
really, I think it's interesting. So much work being around the empowerment of women, right? Like there's tons of women's empowerment. And I even have an event called, Black Girl Retreat, right, in May for teens and young adult women, to empower them around like negotiating, communicating in relationships in healthy ways, right? But then I thought to myself, and we see young girls brunch. How many of these events are for little boys?
Right.
How many of these events are for, like, who are these women? being we're developing these women to be emotional and creative and go-getters, and who are they to partner with if we're not? We just want our women to just be single and believe it or not, a lot of these messages are around, unfortunately, women just saying, I can do battle by myself. Which I'm like, honey, I don't want to do battle by myself.
No.
If I'm doing that, I need like 10 other people to hold up to let me do that with 10 other people. That's the one time you want help.
Right.
When I'm doing good, I get, you know what I'm saying? But there's a whole thing where I have a son who's 20 years old, right? And when he was 14, people started to get in his ear about, don't commit, and like,
Mhm.
don't say I love you, and like, don't, what I mean? And respect women, but you don't have to do all these things.
Right.
And I said, it's unfair for you to think that your daughter deserves love and respect and care and kindness, and my son doesn't,
Right.
because he's male.
Yeah. Mm.
Why? Why does
I
he? Why
know.
does my son not require courtship as well? Like, why?
Mhm.
Why is there no requirement? He's just as long as he follows the rules and doesn't touch anyone without permission. That's
Mhm.
the only thing he requires emotionally from a woman.
Right. Right.
I said, we're not creating spaces, I think, where we're raising our young boys to be someone's husband. And
For
that's our
sure.
first.
For sure.
We got to
For
raise
sure.
boys to be husbands. If that's,
Right.
you want to have grandkids and you want to have, healthy, second, third generations, it's like, no, that's not going to help our sons learning to get what they can get and be
Right. Yeah.
manipulative, and nor with the girls learning that they don't need anyone else. And
Right.
no, we have to start creating that a space where it is okay to tell young boys and older men, right, that like,
Mhm.
this a goal for you, you
Right.
know?
Right. Well, that leads me to a question that I've been asking a lot of my guests on the show this year. So I asked this question of every guest that came on the show this year, just off script.
Yeah.
And it is all about, this gender war that we've been in, where the women say it's the men say it's the women. And we are in a really dark place. We're
Yeah.
seeing marriage rates go down, birth rates
Yes.
go down. People
Mm,
don't want to commit. They don't want to, have healthy families anymore. And it's getting downright scary. Like,
it
I've
is.
never seen it be this way for so long. So, what are your thoughts about that? And if you have any ideas or possible
Uh,
solutions.
um, that is an excellent question. That's an excellent question. I posted also because I'm looking at the same thing you're looking at, Anita. Is
Right, right.
people are not even getting, guys, it's gotten to a point people aren't even getting in relationships
Nope.
until their mid to late 30s. They've
Yep.
never had people were like, and even when I posted, people were like, so what's the big deal? They're not gonna do anything. And I'm like, I can remember having a high school boyfriend, a
Right.
real one, like,
Oh,
like a little
Lord.
college, had a college sweetheart, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
we're not seeing people who have sweethearts at no type of
No,
age, right?
no.
And so I'm a social worker, right? So I like look at micro. What does the human being need to
Hmm.
be nourished and physiologically and mentally? We need each other, right? We
Right,
need
right,
affection. We need
right.
support, right? That's at the micro level. And then at the macro level, what do our families need from us? We need uncles and aunties and
Hmm.
extended and grandparents, right? And if we're not forming relationships until later years, right?
Right,
What is that? Like you said, the birth rates, the
right.
lowest they've ever been, right? And we already know, especially with Black women and Black women's maternal health, it's
Hmm.
already a challenge just to
Right.
have a safe pregnancy. So we have all of these challenges, and then it's like, do you want there to be more us?
Mm.
Do we want us to continue? Is really
Yep.
the big question. We can't survive alone.
Hmm.
We're not, God didn't create us in a space where we're going to be allowed to just be alone. We're just
Right, right.
physiologically, our human bodies are just not created to just go at it alone.
No.
Then our families won't continue, right? Without that macro. And then even globally, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I said like this, and because I think like in all the different spectrums.
Hmm.
If the birth rates are low, people aren't coming into relationships until well after their like fertile birthing years, right?
Right, right.
So we don't create more us. And then there's this growing financial wealth gap with
Mm.
inflation, COVID, housing
Mm.
costs, and people are not living, right? Coinciding
Right.
together. So we're going to get poor people get poorer, rich
Yep.
people get richer,
Yep.
less of us be created to be made, less family, no one to take care of our elders,
Mm.
right? Like, how is this? how is this good for us?
Right. It's
Like no
scary.
one on every single level. I'm like, I can't understand why we're not seeing all the social, political, generational implications
Yep.
of
Yep.
not partnering together, not
Right.
trying. I just think there's a lot of fear. There's just a
Mm.
lot of fear. When I say, hey, but like the financial gap is growing, right? Like, so that
Hmm.
means it's going to take 2 or 3 people to live in a household.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm saying like a regular average household, not a
Yep.
fancy thing.
Yep.
The bills, the inflation, the food costs, right?
Hmm.
It's going to take people to, okay, well, how do you think we're going to make that happen if we just, and then people don't want, well, I don't want to depend on someone else.
Oh, when people say that, I'm just, I'm so over it. So
Welcome
over
to
that.
the welcome to the world. I don't want to have to depend on, because I was disappointed because they didn't keep their agreement or promise, or understandable fear, right? But so
Mm-hmm.
you just never do it again
Again,
because it
right.
just didn't work. Like, so you're just gonna stop like
Right.
creating more people because
Right.
you're
And
saying
and
so.
and as I always have said, I said it's so interesting you say you don't want to depend on, but yet you go to a job and you depend on them to pay you, or you get in your car and you
Exactly.
depend on it to start. Like that's
Exactly.
life. That's life.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
keep trying, keep going. Keep going, choose better. That's always
Choose
been yeah, that's always been my
better.
mantra. So
Yeah.
what part did you play in that? Maybe you
I should
didn't
have met
choose
you
great.
20 years ago.
Yeah, choose better. Choose
Years ago.
better. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
own that. I can own the fact that the marriage I had, I did not choose well. Like that was the first lesson that came
Same.
out of that. Okay,
Yeah.
Anita, you got to learn how to choose better.
Yes.
Because,
Yes.
I mean, that's it.
I
Choose
think that
well.
what you said is powerful, right? I think there's just power in just saying we have this power to choose, right? And for a long time, I had such low self-esteem, right? That I would be like, but there's nothing to choose from.
Mm,
Right. And I think a lot of women will say, ain't nothing out here. Look
yeah,
at
right.
what I'm choosing from, like trash and garbage. Like I'm
Mhm.
like so that's where the mindset is. And what I realized is everything trash or garbage, or the people I'm talking to trash and garbage?
Right. That's
Right.
it.
Like, am I stepping out of the zones of where I'm meeting, where I'm
Hmm.
engaging? Am
Hmm.
I challenging myself to go to different type of workshops,
Yep.
different types of cities, right? Have different types of like, am I getting into different kinds of groups, even if they're virtual, online, whatever? Am I really giving myself permission to get uncomfortable?
Hmm.
Right? Because so many times people will say, well, I meet the same type of guy. And have you been on the same app for 7 years?
Right. That's probably why.
Get a different app. Get a different
That's
app.
it.
Maybe get the same kind of
That's
guy.
it.
Get off Tinder. Get
That's
off
it.
Tinder. Get on something else. Like what? Nothing. And this is where I say we have a lot of solutions to nowhere. We
Yeah.
want something to change without actually having to do anything different.
Right.
And the thing is, there, just like you said, you chose poorly. I chose poorly. There's
Mm,
men out here who are coming to me saying, I can't find someone good either.
mm,
I chose poorly.
right.
My first wife
Right.
was it. My second wife was. So it's like there obviously has to be good, the complement of you
Right.
somewhere. It's a matter of finding the complement of you
Right.
somewhere else.
Right. And I actually believe there are multiple complements of you. And
Right.
that really blows people's minds that
Oh yeah.
there
There
are
are options.
many men that you could be with and be happy. But
Right.
like you
Right.
said, get out of your comfort zone, get out of your own way,
Out
do
of
something
your comfort
different.
zone.
Hmm.
I think my coach, my personal trainer coach, he's amazing. And he was like, you're focused on the wrong thing. Like you got to focus on what you want, not what you don't
Mm,
want. Right.
that's it.
And
That's it.
he said, who are you talking to?
Right.
Right? Are you talking to your friends that are lonely and
Oh.
crisis and terrible relations? Like, then
Mm,
stop talking to people like that. Talk to
ex-
some people in healthy relationships. See what
that's
they're
it.
doing. See what
See,
they're talking about.
that's right.
And I thought about it. I said, "Oh, ouch!" First, I was like,
Yeah, but
"Ouch!" I
that's
gonna say
what's
it
got
like
to
that.
happen, right?
But if
I
you
have
want
an
to be in a healthy relationship,
Yeah,
yeah,
I have an exercise that I teach some of my ladies that I've done, for 20 years. And I tell them, I want you to find couples, and they could be celebrity couples, they could be couples, but I want you to find couples that, for the most part, appear to be healthy, appear to be happy, appear
Right.
to, have a good relationship. And I want you to, they're going to be your like relationship role models or your marriage role model, right? And then the men in those relationships, those are your men role models. So if those men exist,
Mm,
there are
mm,
clearly other men like them out here, right?
absolutely.
So start
Absolutely.
looking at that. Start looking for that. Don't look for the bad men or the men that aren't doing right. Look for the
Yeah.
guys that have been married for 15, 20, 25 years. They appear to cherish their wife.
Yeah.
They're loving, look to those men. And you don't
Yeah.
necessarily want that man. You want a man
Right.
like him. That's
Like
it.
that.
That's it.
Yeah. I think
That's it.
that's so it sounds so simple, but it's such a pivotal piece for
Mm-hmm.
people because sometimes we get so stuck in. I always say there's what people desire, and then there's what people are used to.
Oh,
And I'm always
yep.
like, I'm always,
Yep.
it's just sometimes people don't realize, and I don't sometimes either. It's like I'm used to something, so I'm drawn to something,
Right.
right? Like the men I said who didn't none of them had fathers, right? None
Mm,
of them had healthy fathers, right?
mm,
All of them had fathers, healthy relationships with their fathers.
right.
But I wanted to have a guy who had a strong identity, right? And
Mm-hmm.
his father was a was more like me, right?
Right. Right.
Nurturing and communicating and intellectual. But I was drawn to what, right, I was used to. I
Right.
wasn't drawing to what I desired. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that when people really think about it, we do that a lot because we like to
Right.
sit in that comfortable space. So
Right.
that's a
Right.
really excellent thing to have people do. Have those role
Yeah.
models. Talk
Yes.
to them often.
Yes. And I've, in the last maybe 10 years, I've even found myself stepping out of comfort zones for my business or for my
Yeah.
personal life. I told the ladies, I went on vacation for the first time to Martha's Vineyard, maybe it's been about 6 or 7 years, 8 years now,
Yay.
and have gone back since. But I remember that first time, how uncomfortable I felt being around people, Black excellence, wealthy, like generations
Really?
of Black wealth. That was like, ooh, like, oh my gosh, but again, we've got to do that because
Yeah.
this is what, I want to get used to. This is how I want to live.
Exactly.
But it's going to feel kind of weird at first,
It
dating
does.
a really good guy is going to feel kind of weird at first because, like, I'm not
I
used to this.
my therapist said to me, we were talking about this same kind of similar issue, and she said, imagine you being with a guy who's as emotionally intelligent as
As
you.
you,
And I had to sit and like,
yeah.
it's like that. Like I ain't never been with a baddie. I ain't I couldn't
Yep.
even imagine it.
Yep.
I was like, no, like someone that you didn't have to explain or do the
Yep.
work with or walk
Yep.
through. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how you feel and tell me your emotion. What
Right.
if you weren't, Khadijah, what if you weren't in charge
Mm.
emotionally of
Mm.
your relationship? I don't know what it feels like to be in a relationship that I'm not in charge in. And there's
Wow.
so many women who are like me who've never not been in charge emotionally. And the
Mm.
thing is, in a relationship, it's a shared responsibility. It's
Right.
not he's not
Right.
in charge of me, and you know what I'm saying? But it's a sharing. But I've never
Mm.
known what it felt like
Wow.
to be like, he knows what he wants and he can
Mm.
express it.
Mm.
I don't have to, I don't have to pry and ask and
Right.
sit
Right.
down and you know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying to even myself, and I say that to women as well, is that takes a lot of practice to even
Right.
like, wait, I'm doing too much. Because I'm getting back into the in charge thing.
Right.
I
Right.
want to let go, want to
Mm-hmm.
sit in my seat, want to sit securely and know that they got it. They
Yeah.
need something else, help me.
That's it. That's it. I had
Gotta get uncomfortable.
right. I had a male client, and I don't see many, but I had a male client where we were doing really good work. I was teaching him some really good tools. And he came back into his session after having a kind of a heated fight with his girlfriend. And he said, yeah, Anita, it was getting heated. I felt, the tension in my body, like you described, that I'm supposed to be paying attention to my physiological symptoms. And I could feel myself like getting more and more. And I said, you know what? We need to take a break right now because my heart rate is over 100 beats per minute. And I now know that physiologically, I cannot really hear what you're saying to me. And she darn near fell out the seat like, what? Huh?
Wow.
And he was like, that felt really good. And so we took a break. And even she was like, wow, therapy is really working for you. Okay.
I mean, it's really life changing. I mean, yes. I started using these tools. I use like Warrior Healer Builder tools, and I was talking about using them in this relationship. And it was like the first time, right, that I'd be like, instead of getting back into that whole argument, it's like, you know what? Let's agree to take a break, and I'll come back. And if you want to talk about it later, if you want to continue this conversation, let's continue it and figure out what happened here. Like the next time.
Right.
But even just stepping back and just like, and that's why I said, yeah, relationships are a challenge, but the alternative is what?
Right.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna be alone?
And that's what I've been telling people. I posted today on Instagram about, I have to remember, but it was basically, we're not going to feel good all the time, right? So we're not going to feel good all the time. Romantic love isn't going to feel good all the time. There's a certain amount of grit that's necessary, a certain amount of commitment that's necessary. But I believe that once the love deepens, once it goes to this deeper place, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing.
Yes.
So
love is amazing.
Yeah,
and we need to make it okay for women to want that again, because I think that there's a big, tide saying you don't need it. You can do bad all by yourself. You can do good all by yourself. It's not it's too much drama. And I said, for people that I work with, it's like, a preacher told me a long time ago, when you're in trouble, you'll know when to jump off. Yeah. Right. You'll know you're gonna, but it's gonna feel, I'm gonna be honest, it's gonna feel some parts of your relationship like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it's either gonna dissipate and you're gonna figure it out, or it's gonna be like, I still don't know, and it's time to make a different decision.
Right. And I work with women all the time, and I give them some markers. I give them some markers of, it might be time to end this. So trust yourself, trust the work that you're doing. I believe that if women are doing good work, or if men are, for that matter, if men are doing good work, that they will be getting what they need from their therapist or from a group or wherever they're doing good work. Okay. I've got to learn how to trust myself. I've got to learn how to use these tools. And like you said, if ever it's getting to the point where I'm like, okay, do I want to stay here? I got to trust that I'm going to know that. I'm going to know if it's time to leave or if it's time to just keep going forward. That's it.
Yeah, I think it's powerful. Look, what you said, men also have to be part of this conversation and have to do that work, the same work that we're, women are going in, because I'm like, that's the whole thing is, it's not women's responsibility to make sure that men are mentally well. We're all individuals. We're responsible for ourselves ultimately. But we also have the power to encourage and support and point in the direction of and accept, hey, I want someone who is emotionally able to carry this, carry themselves, right? To be able to manage and navigate their emotions in all of those ways. And I think the overall reason is they're going to be healthier, happier people.
Right.
Just no matter what happens between the two of you, they're going to be healthier, happier, and whole, just the same way that you are.
That's right. That's right. And we need more of that. We need more healthy families and healthy children. It just it just makes me so sad. The thought that there are an entire population of young men and young women that, like you said, they're either getting into relationships older, some of them not at all.
Not at all.
That just makes me sad. I was like, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think
yeah.
too, it's also the, I always like to point to the society overall that we it's being encouraged,
It
right? That we
is.
have these
It is.
choices. I just had a group of women I was on with the power group this morning, and that's what we said. We have they sell us these freedom of choices
Right.
that really lead us to our demise because
Right.
they make us seem like, oh, but you've got the choice. You don't have to have
Mm,
this, and you don't have to get married, and you don't have to, and you've got all these choices. But then they don't tell you the alternative of not choosing when that window is open is, well,
right.
then there's less here, and then there's
That's
fertility,
see.
and tell people the truth. Is it
Exactly. The
is the
consequence of
choice
the all them
right?
choices.
All
Because
these choices that you could be single and you can see lots of people, you can date them all, right? And it's like,
uh,
yeah, you
okay.
can do that. That is your choice. Is
Right.
it serving what you want? Is that,
Ultimately, right.
if it
That's
is,
it.
cool.
Yep.
But don't sell me on choices that aren't good choices, because then you're really saying there's no choice.
Right.
So I just think
Right.
we have to be careful around, the media's image of what a 20 to 30-year-old person should be doing
Mm,
versus what's actually healthy for them to be doing an experiment, where developmentally they really are. And
right.
that's without telling them what to do, but to say, this is a
Right.
time where you can be exploring relationships in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You could be
Mm-hmm.
creating families, and you could be
Right.
learning. Doesn't mean it has
Mm-hmm.
to be permanent, but you could
Right.
be learning.
Right. Right.
So we got to see
And
this.
everybody here knows that I've always told my ladies that we also want to consider biology. And
Yes.
I love facts. I love data. It's one of the things that a lot of people are drawn to my platform
Yeah.
because I'm not just speaking about feelings. Feelings are great, but I
Yeah.
also give people facts and data. And the fact is, you as a woman, you have a biological window,
Yeah.
ideal biological window in which to have children. And
Yeah.
so I want you to consider that, when you're out here, like you said,
Yes.
saying, oh, well, I have all these choices. I just want you to consider that because, like you said, as you're
Yeah.
getting older, that choice may not be there anymore. So
Or
just,
that particular person may be connected to someone else by that time or
that's
in it.
right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like we don't often, negotiate what really happens to the ideal mate partner getting out of
Mm-hmm.
college. And I think
Mm-hmm.
someone pointed out to me, it seems like every other culture, right, encourages and supports this
Mm,
idea of family formation young,
right.
right? Every culture, even people who immigrate to America,
Right. Yep.
but they come with, right,
Mm-hmm.
partner, or within 2 years of getting here, they get
Mm-hmm.
one,
Yep.
right? They don't,
Yep.
waste no time on no
Right.
options. They don't. So I always wonder about that. Is when you go, I was in Africa, like I said, a few months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, everybody here is around family.
Yeah.
Everybody eats
Yeah.
together. Everybody does. Everything is they stop working to be with their family.
That's right.
We here on the other side are like the opposite. Everything here is
Yeah.
around work.
Mm,
And if we got time to talk to you and spend, I'll get to you, but it's like I said, it's countercultural, but you think
right.
birth rates aren't affected and they have poverty, they have, third
Mm-hmm.
world, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Healthy, right? Not having all the health issues that we're having here, the stress,
Yep.
the suicide.
Yep.
They don't even know that means, like, they don't, you know what I'm saying? So you think about here, if we keep thinking in this like Western European cultural way about
Mm-hmm.
these quote unquote options that aren't really beneficial for our future families,
Right.
we've really got to do some unpacking there. Like, it's not sounding very healthy. I
No.
would just unpack a lot of the options and really
Mm-hmm.
think, how sustaining is this
Right.
really?
Right. Oh, there's so many more things we could say about this for sure. We
Yeah.
could talk for hours. It's just, it's unfortunate.
Yes.
I want to believe that in our small corners of the world, with the work that we're doing, that we
Mhm.
hopefully are,
Mhm.
helping people to navigate through some of this. That's really all I can do. But I'm going to do my small part. I always say I'm having those
Absolutely.
conversations and doing my small part out here in the world to make
Mhm.
sure that we're getting back to community, we're getting back to family,
Yeah.
and just people being happier and healthier. That's it.
Oh my
That's and
gosh.
like you said, having better love. That's why I named my platform what I did. Is we need to have a better love movement. Okay.
Yes.
I want to have vintage love in a modern day world. Like I believe we can take something from the past and we can mix it with something now and we can have something
Absolutely.
really amazing. So yeah. So,
Really.
but I'm glad we're on the same page. We're doing,
Yes.
maybe in different ways, but we're kind of
Yes.
on the same page about the work that we're doing. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Khadijah, for joining
Thank
us this
you.
week on the podcast. I so appreciate your time. It means the world to me. Tell my listeners if there's a product or a service that you'd like to promote on the show.
Sure. Well, right now, if you go to my website, Khadijah Tishan, that's my first name, Khadijah Tishan,
Mhm,
.com, you will find the registration for my new course, Fear, a
mhm,
Healing Story, where I talk more about having relationships, right, with between men and women and how we can offer each other love, compassion, grief. This is a really super personal story where you get to build an intimate group of women get to build their own right story of resilience, their
mhm.
story of compassion, and how they can kind of just navigate going forward with a sense of hope and
Okay.
like inspiration around like the most challenging aspects of their life and relationships. So that's going to start March 6th. Every
Mhm.
Sunday we'll meet at 6 p.m. for about 90 minutes for about 5 weeks. So it's pretty
Okay.
intensive, but
Mm.
so worth it. And of course, you can always get my book Real on Amazon,
Mhm,
REAL.
mhm.
And check me out on all the social media platforms at Khadijah Tashawn.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All
Thank
right. So
you.
so I have to head over to Amazon as well and check out your book because normally, I want to support everyone that comes on the show and I want to,
Thank
in whatever way I can. So I'm going to head over to Amazon and check out your book and order a
you.
copy of it. Thank you again for being on the show. Ladies, you know how we do it here. I'm going to list all of Khadijah's information, how to get in touch with her, how to get to her website and take part in her course in her group that she's doing, how to find her book on Amazon. Please reach out to her. Please let her know what you thought about today's episode. Thank you so much. You can learn more about me and what I do and all of my services and all of my products over on my website, www.betterlovemovement.com. By the time this episode is out, the new book, Do Well, A Feminine Woman's Guide to Relationship Success, is out. It's live. Please head over to Amazon and pick up a copy of it. I always have to preface that with some toes are going to get stepped on, ladies. However, if you are in a relationship, if you are dating, if you are engaged, or if you are married, this is your guide to inspiring the man in your life, to bringing out the best in him so you can have the relationship that you want. Okay. Thank you so much, Khadijah, for joining us today on the
Thank you.
podcast. And
Thank you.
ladies, as always, stay open to love. So you found the man who makes you feel unlike any other, and you are dating him exclusively, or you are in a committed relationship or marriage. Now what? The work is actually just beginning, ladies. It's how you now show up every day that will determine the health and happiness of your relationship. I wrote this book especially for women who desire to have the feminine skills necessary to get the best out of their man. Men are actually not that complicated. And if you are open to learning about them, you can have the relationship or marriage of your dreams. Get your copy of the brand new book, Do Well, A Feminine Woman's Guide to Relationship Success, on Amazon today.